I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture.
So here we are, Hard NOC Life. Dominic is back.
Hey, how's it going, Keith?
We missed you last week.
Yeah, well, I heard you got to talk about wrestling.
We did.
It's not my forte, so.
We covered WrestleMania. WrestleMania
Excellent.
Extra Large, aka WrestleMania 40.
I mean, you have talked about wrestling to me before, and I get sort of a disconnect because I wasn't into it in the 90s, and I do remember the Hulk Hogan like 80s era. So and then so again, speaking of different generational, imprint points, I sometimes don't know who you're talking about, and then sometimes I do.
Well, and is it generational or is it taste? Because we're of the same generation, but not everyone loves wrestling.
Well, yeah, but I mean to just drill down on, are you down with Hulk Hogan or are you down with The Rock and the Undertaker and all that stuff? Like, I lost it at the Rock Undertaker thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that is a generational thing, I guess, because like the 80s, when we were children, I think that's when wrestling was that's what Jamie and I talked about. Wrestling was most mainstream in the 80s. Where, like, there was Saturday morning cartoons and everyone knew Hulk Hogan because of Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano. You know what I mean? Like there was that whole early 80s Saturday morning cartoon version of wrestling. The 90s is when it got more aggressive and more like edgy, I guess.
Right.
But they call it the Attitude Era.
Like grunge, like music, totally.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's a good parallel.
Okay.
And then and so it's interesting then, because you are, you're a follower of Dwayne Johnson's like film career though.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
You are
as much as the next guy.
As much, but as like probably one of the most prominent Pacific Islander actors of our generation or of any generation. And the kind of content we've covered on our various platforms over the years, it's hard to not like be aware of Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a wrestling fan. He's the true transcendent star of professional wrestling.
Oh yeah, across like master of all platforms. Like I still think he might be president of the United States someday.
Well, that was one other thing we covered last week was his politics.
But like we're at this moment when I'm just like, yeah, but could it be as bad as the options we have already?
Right. Well, and that was essentially what he said. He was like, I'm not endorsing anybody. He didn't necessarily endorse Trump, but he kind of took back his endorsement of Kamala and Joe 2020. So, but I think also to be like, it was more to me more of a Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too kind of comments, because it was like he was promoting WrestleMania. So on Fox News. So it's kind of like, what did you expect him to say? But we're not here to talk about Rocky or WrestleMania. That's old hat. We have some new hats to talk about. One hat being the fact that you were in Las Vegas last week. That was part of one of the reasons you weren't on the podcast. And you just so happened to be in Las Vegas at the time of CinemaCon, but you weren't there for CinemaCon. Are you aware of CinemaCon?
Yeah, thanks, Hard NOC Media networking connection people departments.
You're like
you could have shouted out. Did Mike go to CinemaCon?
I don't think anyone went to CinemaCon from
our no, I mean I became aware that there was that. There's also a huge Google convention, so it was really a big week in Vegas. And but yeah, I didn't even the occasion did not rise that I even knew to try to go until the last minute. But that's cool.
Would you have gone if we had? Because it's more trade show than like comic book convention.
Of course I would have gone.
They throw the word con and everything now, but
I went to that action figure con. That's not even my big wheelhouse. If there's a con in town and the timing's right, I'll frickin' go.
Doesn't matter what the con is.
Well, I mean, not the
yachts and fishing boats.
Not DEF CON or those hacker cons, or like not Proud Boy Con, but I didn't mean
not the Republican National Con, right?
Not that one. But yes, if it's I would have totally gone to CinemaCon, but it's fine because also you can learn about stuff from the internet.
Well, and I'm not honestly that familiar with cinema. I know it used to be called Show West.
Yeah.
Like decades ago, and it's basically for all of the theater retailers or the theater chains
Right.
to be gathered in one place, and all the studios give their big, they're like versions of Hall H presentations to the theater chain owners, which is kind of interesting too, because like it's not like the theaters aren't going to run a Marvel Studios movie. Like, why do you have
Right.
to pitch them?
I do believe, I mean, just the movie theater business writ large, it is like sort of one of those trending down elephants in the industry. I mean, do you get that sense? I mean, I'm not saying that because I'm wishing for that. I'm just saying that, like, a lot of it is what promotional soda cup are we selling when the
Right.
Marvel movie comes out, right? And
To
you
get
follow
people in
stuff
this.
like that, like what's the
Yeah.
Happy Meal toy and stuff like that. And that's the thrust, and that's why they have to show all the trailers, right? So they know sort of what the cup relates to, right? That's always been a funny thing about about that level of preview for the marketing people. And it just happens that probably that's a less active part of retail than it used to be, but they're still doing it.
Yeah. Well, all of the studios essentially present their wares for the coming year at CinemaCon. Particularly, they're like big summer blockbusters, but pretty much all of the films that are on the slate, and then they announce things that are coming forth. Like, so for example, Disney was there. We just talked about The Rock. The Rock came out to promote the live action Moana, where he's
Mm,
playing Maui. Kevin Feige came out to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. I think they
mm.
even showed footage from Deadpool and Wolverine, which is the only Marvel movie this year.
Yeah.
And
Marvel, not counting all the Spider adjacent movies.
right. Marvel Studios, Marvel Cinematic Universe proper. And then, like Paramount did a bit where they confirmed they're doing the Transformers G.I. Joe movie.
Really? Good.
They're
I
yes,
missed
they're
this shit.
they're
That's
doing
great.
an R-rated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Wow. The time has come. April O'Neil cosplayers, hide in your closets.
To me, the biggest thing that come out of CinemaCon, and I say this strictly as a DC Comics Batman fan, of course, is the trailer for Joker Folie Deux. And I think it's the only footage that was revealed at CinemaCon that they actually put out on the internet. So we can all see the footage from Joker 2.
Yeah, I believe that's right. As far as that's the most big public one, right?
Right. Because
Yeah.
most of the CinemaCon stuff is still kept under wraps. Like, there are descriptions of the Deadpool
Yeah,
footage, but no one's seen it,
right.
at least on the internet.
Right. Which real quick, again, recalls to that cool Hall H thing that used to happen when they'd show something and you just get like someone describing it line by line
Right.
and they wouldn't show it for a while. And that was cool. A cool thing about Hall H. And yes, props to CinemaCon for having that, you know, that level of mystery I always thought was great.
Yeah. Well, and
Anyway,
we can talk a little bit about trailer culture too, because I think
right.
sometimes films that get promoted a certain way don't end up that way. And then there are like, Ghostbusters was actually a great example of the Ghostbusters movie that just came out, Frozen Empire. There's a bunch of shit in the trailers that weren't in the movie,
Uh,
and I don't know how much of that is like actual red herrings, because like the Avengers movie trailers always, like, they always threw scenes that they knew weren't going to be in the movie.
yeah.
Like the famous running one from Infinity War. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
Hulk
scene
wasn't
where,
even there
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
in that scene.
They're just doing that to throw people off the scent. And and I hear people complain about like the trailer, I watched the trailer, went to the movie, and the movie's completely different from the trailer. But I also hate the fact that trailers sometimes tell you the whole movie.
Yeah, totally.
And then like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. There's no, surprise. But what were your overall thoughts of Folie Deux? We've been kind of talking about this movie for a while, particularly the Harley Quinn aspects of it. And I think it's all but confirmed the big Hollywood musical aspect of the film.
Yeah,
Did
it's the
you
big
did you
musical of this year, maybe.
Yeah, did you check out the trailer? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I thought it was great. I mean, as always, and again, I'm not coming a huge fan place with that first Joker movie. I'm not a huge fan, but it's cinematically great. It's always that take, sort of like how the Batman, it reflects how the Batman with Pattinson was sort of a leap up as far as sort of like, I don't know what you call it, cinematic gravitas.
More auteur driven almost, right?
Yeah, and just like the vibe and the tone, and the Joker maybe presaged that because it took a strong, like, basically this is like a prestige Scorsese movie.
100%. The
Right.
Joker movie was what if Martin Scorsese made a Batman movie?
Yeah. And
Was
it's
Joker the movie?
prime. So it looks great. And the vibe is great. And then there's the question, and I'm a fan of the idea of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. Were we a fan of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That said, it did the opposite of a lot of trailers because I don't think I know anything that happens, and I don't also super don't care because it's Joker too. What else is gonna happen? It's just about what songs are they gonna sing.
Well,
The
there's
main
clearly a Burt Bacharach song because that seems
yes.
to be the primary.
And that's a good choice. Now, yeah, the main song that sticks out is that maybe it's the only song really is what the world needs now is love, love, love. I'm not sure the exact title, but it is a Burt Bacharach song. Great. Do all the Burt Bacharach songs. Do Raindrops Keep Falling. Do fucking That's What Friends Are For. If we have Harley Quinn and Joker singing her, that's what friends are for, and Elton John just shows up out of nowhere as whatever, the Mad Hatter. That would be the best thing ever. So,
Well,
but yeah,
and I know you're a fan of Lady Gaga. Well, you're a fan of Harley Quinn. I don't know how much of a Lady Gaga fan you are, but you're a fan of Harley Quinn, the character. You know, you've actually kind of drew a parallel from the Suicide Squad video game to the Joker 2 movie in your most recent article on the Nerds of Color because they released an expansion with the Joker in the
right.
video game. And so but as a big Harley Quinn fan, and you're particularly a fan of the Margot Robbie interpretation of Harley Quinn,
Sure.
how does what you've seen so far of Lady Gaga stack up against what you know of Harley Quinn so far?
I mean, it's uh I, I don't know. I really like the idea. I mean, it gets back to like, okay, what are other, Lady Gaga reference points? Obviously, A Star Is Born, that that I think is a divisive movie in some ways. Uh but I think I'll generally agree that the first bit where she's down and out and then sings a big song, I like that part.
Mhm.
Do you like that part of Star Is
I think
Born?
it's a very shallow interpretation
It is it is literally the shallow
that was
interpretation.
that was a joke, everybody. That's what
That
you call a dad joke in these podcasting streets.
it's well, good joke, Dad. Because it is called in the anyway. In the shallow song is good that first time. That second two-thirds of the movie, I don't know. Anyway, the point is that all maps onto Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn, and we're gonna sing a lot. That's a good idea. It would be a crime if Lady Gaga was in the movie like just in actor mode and didn't sing at all. That would be some fucking bullshit. So if we're gonna have 12 jukebox songs, yes, let's have Lady Gaga involved. And I think in a way, like I'm excited for her take because she isn't Margot Robbie, even because we've gotten I mean, I love, the consistency of Margot Robbie in the DCU that we've gotten so far, but it's fine to have this other interpretations. And since we've gotten used to Margot Robbie, it's almost nice to see another take on it, the version who can sing.
What's also interesting is that one of our favorite Margot Robbie Harley Quinn movies, Birds of Prey, has itself a musical number in the middle of the movie where she kind of pays homage to
Yes,
Diamond's Our Girl's Best Friend. So
yes,
it's not that far off that let's just do a whole movie that's that sequence because that
yeah,
was one of the best sequences in that movie.
yeah. Oh, I mean, Harley Quinn, fans should know her first appearance ever in history. What is she doing? She's singing a song.
Singing. Yeah.
Ever the first appearance of Harley Quinn in anything. She is singing a song in the cartoon, right? So so it's great. And I'll just say, so Lady Gaga played this character who is kind of down and out and has an ascendant moment in Stars Born very well. And she played the card of I'm not that glamorous. We can debate what that means, but she played the card of I'm not that glamorous, and then I have like a moment of becoming a star. So yeah, that maps onto the Harley Quinn thing great. I have this moment where I both become a star and hook up with a psychopath and start doing crimes. Why not? What
Yeah.
do you think?
No, I'm with you. I was pleased to know that it was a confirmation of what everyone assumed for a couple years that it would be a musical, and the trailer gives off heavy like there are a lot of homages to Hollywood musicals. There's like the Umbrella the Sharp
Ah,
Sword
yeah,
with the prison guard.
yeah,
There's
classic.
a lot of like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers homages, it seems like, when in like with Joker with his white tuxedo and some of the dance sequences. One thing that did stand out is that it looks like a lot of like the Harley Quinn scenes, at least from the trailer, And I know you haven't seen the first movie yet, right?
I've skimmed it.
You've seen
let's say
parts
that.
of it, right? You've seen it kind of like
Yeah.
in passing, but
Yeah.
like you've seen at least the iconic stuff from that movie where like Joker's descending the stairs and he's
Yeah.
dancing and all that. Like there seems to be a lot of callbacks to that, but with Harley Quinn instead of Joker. You know, like
Uh-huh.
there's
Right.
scenes of her ascending the steps when she's kind of down and out, and then her kind of like triumphantly or ascending the steps when she's down and out, but then triumphantly descending the steps into madness when she's full on Harley Quinn. There's her putting the makeup on the way, you know, Joaquin puts it on in the first movie. So like I'm curious about how much of this is like, is this, you know, I don't care honestly about like continuity and plot, you know, to be fair. It's like I just want to be kind of like entertained by a good movie. And Joker 1 was fine. I know there was like it won a bunch of Oscars, which was kind of amazing for a comic book movie. But there were a lot of people
Well,
in
it's
like
Joker. Joker always wins the Oscar.
yeah, there was
I'll
something
counter
about
with
that
that.
character.
But we'll get to that later. Okay,
But there's something
but yeah.
about like, you know, like there's kind of like a weird film Twitter, but also like bro Twitter that or incel Twitter, you know, that there was all these kind of like overlaps.
Yeah.
That first movie. And I think with this one, and I've said this many times leading up to the reveal of the trailers, like I'm hoping that the types of folks who are kind of turned off by the idea of making it a full-blown musical, like are like, you know, good riddance to, you know what I mean? But what's weird is that like I guess this is the case where like Joker or those kind of like film bros of Twitter or whatever, or DC fans, like toxic DC fans or whatever, like they can't not go away because there's like the discourse around the trailer for me, what I've seen has been kind of obnoxious because like there are people acting like this is the best shit that's ever been filmed.
Okay.
You know, like they're blown away by, and then granted, a lot of the images in the trailer are amazing. Like I said, where the scene cuts from Joker being walked out of the prison and he looks up and all of a sudden the umbrellas are full of color or like
Yeah.
but there's that the button scene where she draws the smiley face on the window
Yeah.
and Joaquin kind of like matches it. Like the discourse around that one scene on the internet has been obnoxious.
In
There are
what
people
sense?
acting like, and I mean on both sides, not to sound all Donald Trump, but they were very fine
Right,
people
very
on both
fine
sides.
people acting ridiculous. Okay.
But like they're half the Twitter saying like it's the most amazing shit ever, like they've never seen anything like it, which is again overblown. But like, I was impressed by that scene when I first saw it. But then the equally obnoxious people on Twitter who are like, that is unoriginal, and you know, you've just never seen movies, and I'm like, okay, you're just being a dick for the sake of being a dick. Like everything is an homage to something. Nothing is wholly original. And by God, this is a movie about the fucking Joker. Like you're already at adaptations of adaptations. So like let's not act like, you know, there's no originality in anything, and let's not act like everything is the most original of everything. So that's kind of, to me, one of the things I want to start doing is just not paying attention to like which again would we contribute to because we have a fucking podcast, and that's
We
the whole
do.
point of having a podcast, but it's annoying as hell.
Well, no, I get your point, and you bring up a couple interesting points because there is this, you know, there's this tendency to pick a team and stay with it, right? This is part of the, let's say, the not good behavior of Twitter in general. We pick teams and we sort of feel like we have to stand them. And one way that manifests is the Snyder Cut is the best. No, the Snyder Cut is the worst.
Yes.
At this point, I'm like, okay, fucking, who cares? It's not either of those things.
Right.
Same thing. People are on the Joker, on the like the Joker team was Joker movie revolutionized DC movies, and then they're sort of kind of like, but it looks a little fucking, you know, it hits my buttons in wrong ways.
Yeah.
I like to think, well, you describe like people who are on Team Joker are gonna say shit like, "Oh, this is awesome now," and they are mildly Columbusing a thing, but it can have a good outcome because, you know, the other social media behavior we know is like something comes out and all of a sudden you're an expert at it, right? Right. So like someone makes a reference to Kurosawa movie and then all of a sudden everyone is like found, oh, the Kurosawa movie, you know, that happened with, again, Mandalorian, Magnificent Seven. Like, oh, reference. Oh, now I know. Anyway, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is this can all be a good outcome or a good, you know, teaching moment, and we desperately need one of those this year. I'm just gonna say, because everything else going on, this can be a good outcome if the people who or originally were like musicals are stupid but Joker is great sort of move to the side of Joker is great and also musicals I like now. Wouldn't that be an okay,
Well, and then
result?
there's a definitely a level again from like the film snobs of gatekeeping when it comes. And, the fact that you bring up Kurosawa, like it's no secret. For example, the Star Wars movies you mentioned, Mandalorian, are heavily influenced by Kurosawa, right? Like
Yeah,
Hidden Fortress was the blueprint for the first Star Wars movie. That doesn't mean if someone discovers Kurosawa because they watched Star Wars are bad
of
because they
course
didn't
not.
know.
Yeah,
But there's a level of like gatekeeping, film bro, films, Twitter kind of
certainly.
hipster. Like I knew that before. I knew them before they were cool, kind of like
Right.
assholes who are like, well, you didn't know about Umbrellas of Cherbourg before you saw that scene in Joker, so screw you.
Right.
I think that's, I'm glad you brought up the Snyder cut because I think it's a very good point. Like as all the issues I had with Snyder's take on DC, I never thought that like it was like I always said if it was a take and not the take, I'm fine with it. If it's
Yeah.
like if we're only getting these movies and we have, this was in the height of the shared universe type of like films, that was a little kind of depressing to me because I didn't want that singular vision was not my cup of tea. As a standalone, I'm fine with it. Like, I there are aspects of BVS and Justice League that I really liked, and Man of Steel. There are aspects of it I absolutely can't stand, but
Hmm.
it deserves to exist. But to your point about like stan culture and fandoms just picking a side and then just battling as if it's World War III, that's where it just gets too much. Because like the people who are like defending the Snyder Cut as if it's the greatest gift to humanity are like overboard. But
Yes.
also the people who just shit on it relentlessly can also be a little much. And I think here's my milk toast response. Well, let's just moderate and be in the middle. How about that, people? Let's go for
Well,
the third party.
well, right, and that's the stuff that doesn't get play on social media. That's where it gets to yeah. We people
You're either
a large
Nazis or you're not, right? Like it's
right. The larger issue is people take extreme viewpoints just to get clicks from their side. Um, and I don't even want to go to that whole thing because it doesn't have to do with the freaking movie. The movie will be cool if it's a Martin Scorsese-ish musical. I hope they pick some good songs. There is a way of whistling out. I'm sorry to say they could whistle out on the songs or just pick like easy choices of songs, Like if
well,
he
remember
sings,
when we were like
and I don't want
wondering
them to do that. Yeah.
remember when we were wondering like why the budget ballooned so much
Yeah.
because the first movie was like 60 million, this one's like 200 million. And now I'm thinking, well, the word came out after the fact that it's a jukebox musical and maybe it ballooned not because of, production costs, but it ballooned because, the rights to the songs that they're using in the movie might be astronomical. Not that I mean Burt Bacharach is probably not the most expensive song in the catalog, but whatever other songs they're going to be singing might just be worth the money.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
anyway,
I just
I'm glad you brought up Zack Snyder because the other thing I wanted to talk about is a movie coming out this weekend on Netflix. We started off talking about movies coming to theaters and how the theatrical
right.
experience is going to be, needs to be preserved. But, the Rebel Moon movies are exclusive to Netflix. And you got a chance to talk to the Snyder himself, as well
Yeah.
as some cast members.
Yeah, I got a chance to talk with Zack Snyder and cast members of Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, which I sometimes missay is The Scaregiver, which is also a cool name for some other movie. Anyway, Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, is coming out this week. And yes, the press stuff says premieres on Netflix. They make no bones about that. That's where it's premiering. Um, and I don't know who knows what or doesn't know about Rebel Moon. It was conceived as a long piece as as Zack Snyder projects sometimes are, and for various reasons they cut it into two movies. It's it's its own universe. It has a great ensemble cast, and it's like a Star Warsy epic that also is influenced heavily by let's just say Seven Samurai, and also by proxy Magnificent Seven. Film
Which
snobs
was
could be
just the
like,
Western version of Seven Samurai.
right. Film snobs could say, oh, that's like saying it's influenced by the one thing, because Seven Samurai is Magnificent Seven. Great. Yes, that's true. But I say it's influenced by both Seven Samurai and Magnificent Seven, because that is also true, because Magnificent Seven is not a carbon copy of Seven Samurai. It's in English and it has Western American idioms. So, and those things also influence Rebel Moon highly, which has both the samurai thing in the sense that it's got like energy swords and a cool character played by Bae Na, who is, like the East Asian sword fighter template, but it also has a lot of Western idioms, specifically like little town and everyone's dusty and same plot, but they're guns and there's like a cowboy sort of motif going on. So that's why I say anyway. And it's also worth saying that oh, I know, I just mentioned it Subway. Yeah, the first season of The Mandalorian, one of their finest episodes, was that one episode that basically also did the Magnificent Seven story in one episode. Do you remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was a great episode of The Mandalorian. So again, it's in that vein, and it's and it's if you're gonna ape another filmmaker, ape from the best. The Seven Samurai, no, good idea.
Well, and it makes sense too, because you mentioned this is kind of his take on Star Wars, and what I've heard is that originally when he conceived Rebel Moon, it was supposed to be his Star Wars movie.
Yes, I think that's true. Yeah.
And then he just kind of like, when Lucasfilm was like, yeah, no, thank you. It was like, well, I'll just take all of the ideas and create my own universe. But if it was supposed to be kind of like in the Star Wars universe, the heavy Kurosawa influence just makes a lot of sense.
Yes, absolutely. And so I do not know the story of why it isn't or is a Star Wars movie. I just don't know the
Well,
story
I think
there.
probably the R-ratedness of it is one of the reasons Disney was
Right.
like,
There's
this can't
there
be in the Star Wars universe.
there's some hard sex in it or hard sexiness. And that made me think there's parts that definitely evoke ElfQuest. I don't know. I didn't get to ask Zack Snyder if he's an ElfQuest fan. Anyway, more than what I didn't get to ask him later. But you remember, are you an ElfQuest person though?
I'm familiar with the graphic novels.
Okay, well, yeah, there's a really there's some sex in there. Anyway, it has that kind of thing.
Wendy Pini was the
Yeah, I believe
artist.
that's right. Yeah. Um, and
So I know
what
you can't give a full review of part two, but you watched both of them back to back, actually. So you got the full
yeah.
Rebel Moon experience. You could probably like the original, like the Snyder cut of Rebel Moon for
Yeah.
you. Well, actually, no. Let me take that back, because isn't Netflix also releasing a Snyder cut of Rebel Moon that will
Well,
be expansive and R-rated? Because these are
well,
PG-13 movies.
that did come up in the interview a little bit because, I wanted to ask, Zack Snyder's associated, of course, with the very long cut of Justice League, which has a long story attached with it. So I asked him, just like, if it was up to you, would movie theaters just play content of any length? Because you seem to keep running into this issue, right? I have a 4-hour version of the movie, I have a 6-hour version of the movie. And I was just curious, like, if finances and all that shit did not matter, which they do, but let's say they didn't, like, would you just like a movie theater that shows movies whatever length they are? 3 hours, 7 hours, whatever. And we didn't like resolve to a point on that, but to what you just said, it's worth thinking about. Um, yes, this is a movie that was split into two for conventions of format and some content reasons. And yes, there'll probably be a 5-hour complete, or there'll be a Snyder cut of a Snyder cut for people for whom that's important.
Yeah. Well, but I don't get though, like I understand why a theater is like, we can't show a 5-hour movie. We need to have like people buy multiple tickets. So once the 2-hour movie's done, another group of people can come in. But when it's streaming, Why not just like release the 7 hour cut and
That's
then because when you're streaming, people binge 7 episodes of a show, right? That's one thing I never understood. Someone will sit down and go, "That movie's 4 hours long. Fuck that." Oh, but let me binge 7 episodes of Shogun,
right.
which
It's
is
not
8 hours. Like, and
yeah,
it's like middle of the night when I finally go to bed. So like,
right.
I don't get the.
I'm sure Netflix has like well-paid people thinking about this shit, but yeah, then it begs the question, well, why wasn't it just a 6 hour series? Well, it feels like movies, and Zack Snyder makes movies for one thing.
Mhm.
He thinks in features as a concept, maybe very long features, but he thinks in feature movies. It does make this story definitely makes most sense as 2 feature movies or 3 feature movies. Does, you know, an episodic way would be a reconcept of it.
Mhm.
Anyway, the point is, it's cool, and Deux Na fucking kicks ass. I mean, if we want a very short review, Deux Na is awesome as the sword fighter. In Magnificent Seven, she's the silent one who I believe is played by David Carradine. I don't know, the knife fighter who just doesn't say much and just owns everybody. And Sophia Patel is in it, and there's a lot of cool things
She's the
about it.
lead. Sophie Patel is the lead.
She's the
She's like
lead.
the Luke Skywalker of the thing.
Yeah, she's yeah. There's a lot of Star Wars parallels, definitely, and of the classic Star Wars movie. Again, I don't know the story, but I think maybe the story was basically too much, just like the stories of episodes 4 and 5, like would just sort of be retelling those exact. So maybe it was just too much, like the origin story again. Anyway, I don't know that story
Yeah.
fully, but it's like that. It plays out like that in the
So
movies.
where are like you're a director yourself. You've engaged with other directors. You had relationships with directors, and I don't know exactly where you stand on the Zack Snyder filmography,
Hmm.
but getting a chance to actually sit down and talk with him, did just what stood out to you in your conversation? I know it was short, it was only a few minutes because it's these PR junket things, but like, director to director, filmmaker to filmmaker, Zack Snyder definitely has his reputation precedes him
Hmm.
before you had, and I'm assuming this is your first time ever speaking with Zack
Oh
Snyder.
yeah, yeah, totally.
So like what just kind of like even if it didn't come across in the interview, if you didn't get a chance to talk to, what was it just like kind of engaging with a director of that kind of, I don't want to say renown, but almost like an infamy.
He's a very important figure in our whole thing. As far as we have a field, Keith, he's a very important figure in
Sure.
place. Because he was the directorial voice of the DC universe for
A
basically
decade.
for a long period. And these formative versions, whether or not they're your favorite versions, formative, definitely for a lot of people, of Batman, Superman, and the Justice League. Some of the most popular characters in pop culture. So as far as we go,
I mean, even The
that
Watchmen. I mean, you take it
and
all
the
the way back
watch
to The
right.
Watchmen because
Fucking
he filmed
started with the
he filmed
Watchmen.
the unfilmable graphic novel.
Yes.
Say
And
what you
yeah,
will about it, but he did
yeah,
it.
absolutely. He did. And so yeah, so I very much wanted to be able to talk with him. I think Laura talked with him once about another movie on the
Yeah, we've
Knox
had
network.
Zach on the
Okay.
website several times. Like Laura talked to him about first part of Rebel Moon. I think Patrick had him on for Army of the Dead.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
he's not unfamiliar to the Nerds of Color. I've never spoken with him. If I ever get a chance to talk to Zack Snyder, I want to talk about Michael Jordan's Playground, which is his first
Totally.
film that
Right on.
everyone always looks over when they talk about his filmography. I would spend an hour talking about Michael Jordan's Playground. But that's probably why I wasn't assigned to the interview. But again, as where were you on his filmography? Just like your own personal taste, though, because like you were never a fan of like the DCEU
Oh yeah, no, I was
Snyder version,
yeah, I mean yeah,
like
if it,
300, Dawn
it's
of the Dead.
documented in this podcast, we have our issues with Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, and the whole Justice League thing, which was complicated by the COVID thing. I'm sorry, I was dancing around saying like I let's
It's
say
okay. Zach won't
I,
come and hurt you if you
I'm
have
well.
nothing.
I don't want to get that far into it, but I will say I'm well versed in his filmography.
Yeah.
That much is sure. I want to talk. What's his favorite part about making a film, given that there's tons of things going on. There's like big budget effects, there's a large cast, design, camera work, and so I was curious about like what what parts he really enjoys tactily while doing the filmmaking stuff. And it was interesting when it came up. It was like I got the impression it was just like it's such an exhausting process with all these other things. He just talked about his um basically about his family and about being able to like process the events of the filmmaking day with his family. And I thought that it's a nice moment. It and it was a nice thing to hear. Because without going deep into it, we know that Zack Snyder's personal family life suffered a great tragedy, and there's all this. It was a big thing, and
And his wife is his producer on all of his films.
right,
Yeah.
and so basically, cool guy to hang out with. Uh, it's worth noting he does the tour thing on Rebel Moon even more than other cases. He has co-writing credit and he's credited as the director of photography, like the cinematographer, which makes sense with what I know about him. He really digs on the camera work stuff. Um, but
Is he
again,
aware of the cult of personality built up around him, though? Like, I mean, every director, I guess, in a sense, is a cult of personality, but like, there are Snyder fans are a different breed.
I did not ask the cult of personality question. My radar was attuned, and I wouldn't say, here, okay, I don't know how to answer that question, address that
Well,
question exactly.
you didn't have to ask Zach, but
I,
like your opinion on that.
I will say he's not. I don't say he's aware like he's owning it as like a power resource that I control. He may be aware of it, and I think he's verging towards diplomatic
Yeah.
in just speaking to people as one would, because it's a whole can of worms.
Well, but to your
There,
point about like it's a power, it's a superpower you could wield. I mean, that's kind of what
mm,
happened with this cut, right? Because
mm,
that say what you will about the people behind it, that's was an unprecedented thing to have. Not since maybe like bringing Star Trek back from cancellation, right? Like the last
mm,
time fans really willed a thing into existence,
right, right,
because like for years it was like there's no Snyder cut. He's done. He's gone. He's done. It's nothing to do with DC anymore.
right,
And 5 years later, out comes the Snyder cut. Of course, COVID had a lot to do with that, but
right,
there it's one of those things that never was supposed to happen, and it happened. Like
right.
maybe we'll
Yeah.
get Batgirl one day if we have enough fans, like pressure the studio.
I would like that if there's any benefit from that model happening. Yes, let's have the Batgirl movie. Yes, and yes, it's true. And he is so yeah. In 5 minutes we didn't get to all that, but yeah, I don't think. Yeah, he that was a special fan power fandom moment. I don't quite know what to say except he's not like wielding that power like indiscriminately. For example, I mean, it didn't become the point of Rebel Moon is a Star Wars movie. For whatever reason, it isn't. But he has enough power it's a very, extravagant and well-funded science fiction movie. And maybe it was supposed to be the video game at some point. And anyway,
Yes. So with that, Dominic, I want what's nerd popping and what 12 Valentines updates can you give us?
oh well, we're gonna have our second song come out this week. It's called Someone, put the question mark. And it's our second full-ish song. The first one, Scandal Bane, is still floating out there. If you would like to hop on and add us on Bandcamp at 12valentines.bandcamp.net or 12valentines.net is our other stuff. It's also on YouTube and Spotify. But the point is, a new song coming out this week and it'll be pretty cool. And this one, it doesn't directly relate to the superhero stuff. So like, I don't know, for just if you got the impression they're all superhero comic songs, they are. I don't know who you weirdos are who don't want a DC Comics reference in your pop song, but we have those too. And then after that, and then in the future, we have our Birds of Prey Suicide Squad song and an X-Men related song that I'm quite excited about. So,
When you also have Patreon now or you've restarted your Patreon so folks can
yes.
throw you some extra funds to get the 12 Valentines full experience.
Yes, we restarted the Patreon. Patreon at Doma, Dommah, or something like that. Also on Ko-Fi, same thing. And again, the point of this is analogizing back to our Joker thing. Is, we can make the indie version of this album, like Joker was a cute little indie movie for whatever, $85,000 or whatever, a relatively low scale production. Or we could have Joker 2, which cost, what is it, Keith? $200 million?
Full-blown musical. Yes, if you donate $200 million to Dominic's Patreon.
Yes, we can have the musical version, which will have cosplay dancers and like a full band and all that shit. So those are the tiers we're working with.
So patreon.com/Doma,
I believe,
D-O-M-M-A-H,
yes.
or
I'm DOMMAH on
everything.
most socials, except TikTok where I'm Dama1. But yes, please Patreonize me, Dama, on Patreon or on Ko-Fi. I also like Ko-Fi.
We
Or
should
just-
find Dama Prime on TikTok and see what's his deal.
Yeah, I gotta find out who these guys are. I mean, I know some of these guys are. And when I Google myself, like it used to be the main thing was a guy who unfortunately got like murdered in Canada named Dominic Ma, like in the 90s. That was the big Google hit for Dominic Ma for a while, but now there are other Dominic Ma's
You've
in the
SEO'd
world.
him out of existence. Poor guy. The poor murder
Well,
victim.
he
You
was
also
literally out of
SEO'd him.
existence already. Sorry, but anyway. Wait, I want to branch out for 1 second because you mentioned one thing which we didn't talk about. What the G.I. Joe versus Transformers movie is a thing?
Apparently, well, that was the button on the Rise of the Beast movie.
Ah,
There was the post-credit sequence was Anthony Ramos gets approached by some guy, Michael Kelly, the actor, and he flips over his business card and it says G.I. Joe. It would have been a way more effective, cut scene if Michael Kelly had anything to do with the G.I. Joe movies, but he's just
Right.
like random character actor.
right.
And then, if had that been like Henry Golding or something, that maybe not that Snake Eyes, I think they've
But they're
we're
gonna have
done
some
with the
kind of
Snake Eyes
snake.
universe.
But for God's sake, I mean, to be a filmmaker for a second, anyone can be Snake Eyes in one
Yeah.
scene.
Well,
He's got a mask.
he doesn't have to say anything.
He doesn't have to say anything. Jeez, anyway. In some part of the universe, G.I. Joe versus Transformers and whatever, G.I. Joe and Transformers the movie is like a Batman versus Superman event.
Right. And
so-
then unfortunately I don't think we live in that universe, but that's
All right.
because
Fair
no one
enough.
cares. No one cares. You can find the Nerds of Color on all platforms, the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color. Go to hardknockmedia.com for the podcast. Give us a rating and review so you can find the podcast and other people can find the podcast. If you want to see videos, including Dominic's interviews with the cast of Rebel Moon and Zack Snyder, the director, go to youtube.com/the Nerds of Color, like and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button on the YouTubes, and you can be alerted. Hit the notification bell. You can be alerted when those videos go up, so you can check out Dominic's conversations with some cool actors and Zack Snyder. The youtube.com/the Nerds of Color. We're on Patreon. We're on all the things. But that's Hard NOC Life. I'm Keith. That's Dominic. Until next time.
Till next time, we'll be talking about the NFL draft, I'm sure.
Probably.
Somewhat.
Well, until next time, what the world needs now is 12 Valentine.
Nice, Keith. You can be on the album. We'll have bonus
Thank you.
content.
You can just snip that and
Yeah.
plug it
Also,
in.
if you just want to be recorded rapping the bit from On Your Own, we can fit that into a skit somehow.
Nice. Well, I am too hot to handle. Too cold to hold.
Maybe we'll change like every third word, and then we'll just be able to use it. Can you do a Weird Al sort of take on?
Maybe we'll do,
On your own.
the Weird Al version on our own.
Okay.
This is the hard knock life, but not the chicken kind. More like the people.